Today we're going to talk a little bit about exit anti-collision and what it is and how to set it up on the RTC. So let's say we have a car wash. Here's the ground. Here's our car wash building. Then we've got cars entering here and exiting here. And we've got a conveyor which is moving cars through the wash. Now, let's say we've got a car and it is out of the wash, off the end of the conveyor, and for whatever reason, it's just sitting there. It's not driving off, maybe they're on their phone, maybe they've had a heart attack and died. And let's say we have a second car, which is in the wash, getting washed, moving through. Now, eventually the conveyor will push it into that car there, which is sitting there. He's off the conveyor, there's nothing pushing him. So we want to stop this car before it hits this car. And the first thing we're going to do is pick a point and say, okay, if this car reaches this point, this car has not driven off yet, we're going to stop the conveyor. And that distance from the entrance gate photo eye, or whatever photo eye is measuring the length of the car, we're going to call that the location. And we're also going to need a second sensor here, which is usually a built-in loop under the ground which detects this car. We need something to tell us that this car is still here. So we're going to call this our exit anti-call sensor. And we're going to do one more thing. We're going to have this location, but we're also going to have another sensor somewhere in the car wash bay, probably a photo eye, pretty much at the same point as this location. And this location and the photo eye are going to act as backups for each other. So we're going to have to set it up to say that, okay, once this car reaches this point, or if it hits this sensor, this photo eye, this guy hasn't left, we're gonna stop the wash. Now let's take a look at how we set this up on the RTC. All right, so here's the image that we were just talking about for exit anti-collision. And here is our RTC web interface. So now we're just going to talk about how to set this up all on through the RTC's web interface. And the first thing we're going to look at is this input loop here, or this sensor. So we have to tell the RTC, okay, where is that connected to which I/O node and which input. So that's going to be under I/O, and then input assignment. And then it's going to be under safety function. So we'll expand this little section here and go to exit anti-call. So this is where most of the confusion is which input applies, where do you set that in the RTC? So this exit anti-call applies to this loop outside the conveyor, which tells you there's a car sitting there not driving off. So for this one as example, we'll say, hey, it's connected to I/O node 3, input 1, and we'll submit that change. Now the rest, we're going to set up through the conveyor equipment. So go to equipment, conveyor, and here's our exit anti-collision. There's a bunch of other anti-collisions, but this is the main one, basic anti-collision that we're talking about right now. So we're going to enable that. And we're going to start by talking about these two fields right here. So the location is this distance here that we've already talked about. How far into the bay does the second car have to get before it says, hey, he's too close, let's stop the conveyor. So I don't know what the value is, but we're just going to say 1, 2, 3. And this input here is this sensor in the bay. This photo eye or whatever sensor you have that's about the same point to the location saying, hey, this car has gotten too far ahead. And another reason I have a sensor, not just location, is this guy could drive ahead. So, location doesn't make any more sense anymore because he's driving, but he's still going to hit this photo eye and the conveyor is going to stop and maybe an alarm will go off. So this time we'll just say, who's he attached to? Well, we'll say 3, 2 in this case. And that's it. That should get your basic exit anti-collision working. Now we've got a couple other fields I'll talk about. Stop or pause the conveyor. So that's basically saying, okay, when this guy does hit this point, this guy's sitting there, what do? Do we stop the conveyor and stop all equipment? Or do we pause the conveyor, which means we'll pause some of the equipment, we'll pause the actual motion of the conveyor, but maybe some of the equipment will be staying on if we don't want that equipment to go on and off too often, like dryers. But this time we'll just say stop, stop, stop. And we've also got this checkbox for auto restart. And what that means is, okay, let's just say we end up in an exit anti-collision situation. This guy's driven ahead, conveyor stopped. Well, what happens when this guy eventually does drive off and exits this loop? So once he drives away, everything's okay again. So if auto restart is checked, then as soon as this input turns off, the conveyor is going to start up again automatically. If this is not checked, then nothing's going to happen until a human being comes over and intervenes. And the only other thing we have is these two outputs here. And what they're for is, let's say they will be on whenever the conveyor has been stopped due to an accidental collision. So really therefore, like maybe you have a sign out here saying, hey, please drive away, or maybe you have a buzzer that goes off so an attendant can can be warned that something's going on. You can tell the guy to drive away. But these will be on whenever we are in an exit anti-collision situation, and they'll go off as soon as the exit anti-collision situation has been cleared. And that's about it. That is exit anti-collision on the RTC. Thank you.